Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. We have attendees from all over the world. So, welcome to all of you to the Democratization of Mapping virtual event. And thank you for taking the time to be with us as we explore the fascinating topic of drones in modern cartography. But first, I would like to thank our sponsors, Compass Drone, Bad Elf, and Skyward for their support. On a personal note, I would like to thank Neil Sandler of XYHT and Mark Barunos of Connect Me for inviting me to moderate this virtual event. Now to our subject matter. Let me share my screen. Okay, so uh, the our industry, for us, all of us who've been involved in mapping and aerial photography for years, has changed dramatically. In the early 80s, when I was flying that mission to the left, it was um, it was pretty rudimentary. Today, the image on the right, you have an aircraft doesn't have a pilot and measured a few pounds, and it can do amazing stuff. But before we start with our subject matter, let me keep a few housekeeping items. The program guidebook is available on that link. For those of us who started early, there was a screen uh, playing continuously, which is great. Post questions in the Q&A box, please. I will be monitoring and ask the presenters, and use the chat box only to send tech support messages. Um, at the end, you can also book uh, personal meetings with the partner companies in page 11 of that program. And at the end, we're going to have three lounges where you can meet and talk to us. I will stay on for the duration of the lounge. You can find that in pages 4 and 5 of the program. The agenda, I'm going to talk for a few minutes, and then I'm going to introduce David Gallagher and Jamie Davis of the Ohio Department of Transportation. They have an amazing UAV program. Then we have Alejandro um, from Venezuela telling us how he moved from being a pure GIS company to be a photogrammetry company. Then we have Ramiro Baez and Cesar Camblon from Argentina. Uh, they've been in business for over 30 years, and they have seen everything from GPS with only 12 satellites to their own aircraft. Then we're gonna have Brent Howard, the CEO and founder um, of Compass Drone, telling us about data. This is one thing that you guys will deal with if you have a drone operation. Lots of data. Then I put together a panel of three experts that will allow us to talk about the issues. Turning a land surveying operation into a photogrammetry company has a lot of issues, and we're going to spend an hour with these three experts. And then finally, Larry Fox from Bad Elf will talk about ground control, a very important subject when we deal with, developing our own geometry for strength. And Larry will be talking about that. Then we'll wrap it up and we go to the networking and happy hour. A little bit about me. I graduated as a geodetic engineer in Venezuela in 1984. And during that time, I also was working part-time as a navigator and camera operator. I flew aircraft like a B-25 Mitchell from World War II, a Learjet 25 Charlie, Cessna 310. I spent 750 hours operating cameras and crashing in odd airports in Venezuela. I did my master in digital photogrammetry in 88. In 1990, I moved to Canada, became a Canadian citizen, and worked on first and second order control points until 94. Did my MBA in international finance in 2004. Joined Trimble Navigation for 2 years, selling their geospatial tools all over Latin America. And that's when I discovered drones for mapping. I Trimble had an amazing aircraft called the UX-5, and I fell in love with the concept of doing something that for me was so complex, doing it so easily. So I became, enamored with the idea, and I'm writing for a few publications about drones and aviation. In 2015, I founded Juan Plaza Consulting Corp, and today I'm an aviation and drone consultant, also an aerial photography pilot, both in a citation jet and Part 107. So any questions about aviation, just give me a call. How about this event? How do we went from this, someone holding a camera, to, this, someone launching an aircraft and in one day having a digital terrain model and an orthophoto? It was not an easy process. It was not overnight. But for 30 or those 100 years, I was a witness how it happened, how we went from photographic film. I'm sure all of us remember Kodak and Fuji, and how we went from that to digital imagery, from LORAN and inertial to high precision GPS and GNSS navigation, from manned aircraft to unmanned aerial platforms, from jet and internal combustion engines to fully electric vehicles, and cameras that weighed hundreds of pounds to just a few ounces. And to illustrate my point, you have a photograph there. That was my camera operator in a job that we did in 84. Every time he had to work on the airplane, we had to remove the camera so he can stand on the pavement and work, because the aircraft was so small and so hot that it was impossible. The most obvious consequence of this migration or this change is economic. It's a lot cheaper to do aerial photography today, but the question is it easy? The answer is a conditioned no. From ground to aerial operations is more than a change in attitude. It's also a change in attitude. Aviation companies have to deal with issues that are not familiar to land surveyors. And trust me, you will be turning your company into an aviation company. Upgrading from land surveying to aerial image is a big step. And we have assembled for you today a group of people who can help understand the enormity of the task and also a few of the details involved in it. They have learned sometimes the hard way the implications, and they're willing to share the experience. There are hardware considerations, what platform to use, what um, aircraft to select. I'm not particularly fond of quadcopters because they tend to fly for too short time, and that doesn't accomplish anything. I like fixed wing aircraft, but that's me. Then you have software. You have to turn all those images into products. Data, be ready, because there's a lot of data involved in this. And the operations, launching an aircraft or launching a crew in a pickup is completely different. Safety, you have to start thinking in terms of people on the ground and your responsibility as a pilot in command. And of course, now you will be dealing with a new agency called the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and these guys do not play around. They have an amazing safety record. There has not been a commercial aircraft crash in 11 years. They have transported 9 billion people in the US without a fatality. So they're not going to compromise on safety. You have to be ready to enter into their arena. Now, our first presentation is by David Gallagher and Jamie Davis from the Ohio Department of Transportation. And I have to tell you, I met David a few months ago in a Skyward promoted presentation in which David and his team presented the ROI, the return on investment for the UAV program, and I was riveted. It was fascinating how they turned their operations not only from land surveying to aerial, but how they quantify the benefit, and it was outstanding. I'm going to talk to Neil and Mark about doing a specific virtual event on ROI for UAV operations in the future. But today they're going to talk to us about the program.